Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here, and I'm super excited for this beer because there's a brewery I miss very much. It's called Folks Beer. They closed up shop a year or so ago, kind of abruptly. It was a bummer because one of my favorite breweries, actually one of my favorite breweries beer-wise, one of my favorite breweries to drink in New York. They're in Brooklyn. Yeah, they've kind of made a bit of a comeback under a different name called Schenker. Yeah, Schenker Beer Company. They brew now. They used to have their own shop in Brooklyn and brewing and whatnot. Now they're doing most of their stuff or all their stuff out of 12% Beer Project up in the old, what is it, Connecticut, I think they're located. I'll tell you in here, right? Boo, North Haven, Connecticut, which is kind of like, it's a contract place, but it's not really contract. It's kind of more like a, I don't know how you'd put it, like a place for people to go and brew as opposed to like here, make my beer for me kind of place. Anyway, so they set up shop there, and they've been producing beer for a while now, but even though they distribute it in New Jersey, the closest place is like an hour away, and, just haven't been able to grab some. Lo and behold, they have this little list where you can find their stuff, and boop, a little place close to me kind of popped up there. So I stopped there, and they had this. Their Hidden Groove. This be a American Pale Ale, coming in at 5.3% alcohol by volume. It says Hidden Grove is an American Pale Ale brewed with Pilsner malt, white wheat, and flaked oats, and hopped with a blend of HBC 586, Strata, and New Zealand grown Cascade. Find that interesting. New Zealand grown Cascade. You think Cascade, you think of, Pacific Northwest. That's what I do. Yeah. This can be 2 weeks, a little under 2 weeks old. Let's get to it. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, Folks Beer was my jam. It was a bummer they kind of went away, but now we get a little bit of Joey Pepper back up in this piece, so we'll see how this sucker shows and proves. Label-wise, it's all right. It's very, very uber traditional. You think of, you hear the word Schenker, Schenker Brewer Company. You kind of think of old world, kind of like, German, stuff like that. And it kind of has that vibe kind of going for it with this kind of framed out, picture frame-esque kind of can art with that kind of traditionally kind of painted kind of picture in the middle. You're talking about a hazy pale, so we're not dealing with the kind of beer you'd expect from a can like this, but it's all right. I could say it's going to move my mountains, but at the same time, don't hate on it. Beer-wise, as far as that looks, you're talking about a 5.3%. I got a fly in here. A 5.3% hazy. That's definitely looking the part. This fly is going to annoy the crap out of me this whole review. I'll try to ignore it. Sorry. Anyway, so looks very dark. Looks very turbid. Not overly dark. Very rich, kind of index finger just above that, just off white head. Definitely looks the part of a nice new school hazy pale. Let's see if we can get a nose. Man, I think it's bursting at the seams with fruit, heavily leaning into citrus here. But you definitely get, like, every gamut. You're running a gamut here. You're getting your stone fruits, you're getting your tropical fruits, leaning a little bit more kind of mango-y, kind of tropical fruity mango-y, not so much like cantaloupe-y, not so much kind of kiwi, kind of mango vibes. But it really is a citrus that kind of wins the day here. Very much kind of like getting an orange, getting a grapefruit, getting that pineapple kind of thing going on. It has this nice sweetness to it without being overly sharp or overly aggressively, cloyingly, or the precursor that I know you can't actually smell sweet, but you can get those kind of precursors from that. It smells quite nice. Honestly, it smells like a very robust, very impactful 5.3% hazy. Let's dive in. Cheers, y'all. Okay. There's a bitterness here I didn't really kind of assume would be there based off of their nose. It's got to be that Cascade doing this thing. You hear Cascade. But when you see, New Zealand-born Cascade, and you don't really get a nose, it kind of slips to mind. I mean, that fruit portion of the show that we talked about is absolutely there. It's probably just a little bit more muted on maybe the tropical fruit side of things, but it's definitely still heavily there in the citrus. Very kind of sweetened kind of orange juice, sweetened kind of pineapple juice kind of thing going out without being kind of synthetic or fake. You do get that tropical fruit thing. Like I said, it might be a little bit smaller than what you'd expect based off of the nose. But you're really the star of the show here, or I guess the surprise guest of the show here would be the way the bitterness kind of plays on this. It has this kind of slightly danky, slightly resiny, kind of ranky kind of thing going on. It's not necessarily weedy. It wants to be a bit more piney, resinousy, but it has this inherent kind of like... One more sip. It is like literally a mixture of weed and pine, but without getting too mean. It's a little sweetness to it, a little mean mugginess, but not too kind of dirtiness to it. I actually think it's really, really tasty. I was absolutely blown away that that bitterness is going to be there, and the way it kind of shows up and how sweet this beer is for 5.3%. And the way the fruit's going to come off on this, it actually is a decently sweet beer. And without that bitterness, without that little mean muggin kind of, little ranky kind of, piney, weedy kind of thing going on, I think it ends up being just way too one-sided and ends up being a sweet on sweet on sweet thing. It's that mix, that bitterness that brings that kind of balance to the whole thing. And when you cap it all off with a really nice, it's not fluffy, silky, soft. Let's go soft mouthfeel. Kind of not let down here. I had very, very high hopes. You know, like I said, not that Folks beer was like Hazy IPA Central, but they definitely made those kind of beers. So to see them kind of land somewhere else on a different system and start making beers, I had very, 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 very high hopes for them to be just as good, if not better. I think we landed there. 5.3%, very expressive, very impactful. Giving you gobs and gobs of the fruit all across the spectrum, leaning heavily into that citrus end of things, especially on the taste. The nose leads you down this New England thing, and when you taste it, you're getting old school East Coast New England style stuff that is not afraid of bitterness. And it has this cool mixture of that resinous, weedy combination thing with almost like that sweetness, like when I talked about those kind of like that era when they were getting those kind of green, sweet, piney, sweet green grassiness in a lot of these beers that you don't really get all that much nowadays. It's all kind of just drop out all bitterness, be very, very kind of monotone and try to do what everybody else is doing. This has this kind of cool kind of bitterness and weedy rankiness that kind of just plays off of that sweet fruitiness that ends up being a really fun beer. I dig this. I think this quite a bit. The only thing I don't like about this beer is the flies buzzing around my head the whole time, and I just want to murder the crap out of it as it flies in front of my face every time. So you can see it, right? I'm going to kill it. I'm going to finish this review, and that thing's dying. Anyway, not to get too far off on the tangent. But yeah, no, honestly, you know, for trying to get their beers for a couple months now, and not being able to get them, and then finally grab one and have these kind of high hopes, and then have it kind of deliver, if not over-deliver. Absolutely delicious stuff. And one of the better, if not, let's go down. Is it one of the better hazy pales that you've had as late? Yes. Mount Rushmore status? Yes. This is, for me, this is very much, you know, Sneak Box. This is very much those level of beers, you know, Pseudo Sue. This is just as good as those beers, albeit different. You know, it has a uniqueness to it. The way that bittering kind of comes off is not something you typically get nowadays in general, let alone at this ABV level, with this impact from the fruit side of things in combination with the way that bitterness comes off. It's absolutely tasty, absolutely fun, impactful, showy, drinkable, the whole nine. Mount Rushmore status. Value and availability. I want to say I paid $17 for a 4-pack, kind of poopy for a 3.5% beer, but, you know, at this stage of the game, pandemic, post-pandemic, prices, everything's more expensive. It's kind of just where things are nowadays, so I'm not going to get too all riled up about it. And off the shelf, which isn't too bad, 12%. That's pretty much how you can go to the brewery and actually get beers from there, but pretty much all their stuff hits distro and leave you with, if you like what you like this, if you like low ABV, impactful haziness, this is going to do you all of the kinds of proper. Schenker, have you had their beers? Have you been to 12% for any of their releases? Have you had any of their wildly different stuff, you know, whether some lagers or pilsners or stuff like that? I believe they're still doing their staple, one of their staple beers, when they're a folks beer, they did the Glow Up series. I think they're still doing that. Have you had this beer? Have you had this particular batch of this beer? Like I said, it's 712 this is born on. So, yeah. Know anything about the brewery? Any of that fun stuff? Your thoughts? All that fun stuff down there. hopefully y'all enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a little Schenker right now. Hopefully see you next time. I'm gonna go kill that fly. Cheers, y'all.